The only thing better than Mel in the middle is Andy and Summer on the side.
Oh,
I just love it.
Sucking up is not going to work.
Oh, and you should see the shoes that Summer is wearing today. They're great.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. But we're not here to talk about shoes, I think.
Who says?
That's correct, because I never know.
Could be Brussels sprouts, could
Could-
be shoes, could be pontoons.
So, like I have said before, I'm stuck in the middle because I'm not sure what question I'm going to get. And you notice the backdrop, how the road splits. Sometimes I feel like I start out on one side of the road, but after we keep talking, I double back and take the other side.
ooh.
So which road will I go?
I think you're gonna find this much easier, Mel.
Oh, much easier. Okay,
This
great.
This is more picking your brain, Mel, than it is,
okay.
getting you caught up and you changing sides and everything like that, right?
Yeah.
So I got some initial little questions for you, right?
Okay.
All right. Let's say that you, right? You were out to lunch with Summer and I. We're sitting at a table, right? And you look over to your left, right? And there's an older lady sitting there. And for some reason, you hear, right, a little voice in your head that says, Mel, you need to tell Summer to give that lady the shoes she's wearing. Right? You hear this little voice. Now, you know Summer. You know
Yeah.
the Summer giving away a pair of shoes is not going to cost her resourcefully because she probably has 400 or 500 pair. Like, look, do you see that look? Because he thinks I'm joking.
He thinks you're kidding, yeah.
She's got a whole bunch, right? Summer could come with a moving trailer to put her shoes in, right? But you also know that Summer accessorizes, like it matters what shoes she's wearing with like when she goes out and that type of thing, right? The question isn't whether Summer would give the shoes away, because I think we both know she would give her shoes away. The question is, you're sitting at lunch, you hear a voice that says, Mel, you need to tell, not ask, you need to tell Summer
Oof.
to give that woman over there her shoes, right? So Mel, are you going to tell Summer? Tell her, not ask her, I think I might have heard this, Summer. What do you think about this? But with definitive speaking words, say, Summer, you need to give your shoes to that lady over there.
You know what? To be honest with you, I wouldn't do it. I'm sorry, I wouldn't do it. I'm sure I wouldn't do it.
So-
I would.
I believe you.
I
Most
would-
people wouldn't.
I would smother it. I would just.
So, all right, so let's say you smother it, right? And a few seconds later, you hear a voice in here said, Mel, be obedient or else.
Oh, God.
You know what? I still think I'm sorry. I still
No,
think.
what if it's for me?
Okay.
What if I don't give my shoes away and then I walk out and I trip and break my leg because I didn't give my shoes away?
Oh.
So right. Okay. So Mel, hold on. Okay, so go. Let me go back
Did
one
I
step.
steal something
Yeah,
there? I'm
because
sorry.
we're doing. No.
That's
She's
what I'm
on the same
thinking.
track. What if the third time you hear Mel, it is accompanied with unbelievable stomach pains and indigestion that
gosh.
just come out of nowhere on you?
It's so interesting you said that the third time, because isn't that what happened to Samuel and Eli? Wasn't the third time?
Yeah, where Eli says.
Oh.
So you got a third
Yes.
time, right? Third time, and God says, Mel. So now you're sitting there with stomach pains. We can see that there's something wrong, and so we look at you and go, Mel, what's wrong? Are you okay? Are you going to tell Summer that, or are you going to watch her walk out, trip and get her over her shoes and go, I should have said something?
Oh, how I would like to see myself saying to Summer, God told me, or I felt this sense that you should give your shoes to this woman over there. I would like to say that I would do that, but I'm afraid I would chicken out. I would.
You see, I think that some people would go like, okay, this is crazy, guys, but I'm hearing, Summer, you need to give your shoes to her, like, and leave it in their lap. But that's not, the deal was, it said definitively, are you going to look at Summer and say, Summer, give your shoes to that woman over there? Right? Because I know what I would do. I would do Summer, it's crazy, but this is what I heard. Do with it what you want. Right?
Yeah.
I would get out that way. But that's not what God asked me to do.
Yeah.
God said, tell Summer, give the shoes away.
Why do you have to think about it?
Because I just feel like it's so bizarre.
But what if you didn't hear it from God and I just give my shoes away? What happens? What's the worst thing that happens?
Right.
If I give my shoes away.
That's true. You're
Really,
right.
Mel, like, what does it matter? You have to give me a piggyback to the
You know
car.
what?
But wait, I don't know that woman isn't praying for a pair of shoes to give her granddaughter,
for prom,
right, who's
or
going to the prom.
or like-
But we don't know anything about the shoes. God just tells us, be obedient. I
Yeah.
didn't look down and see whether the woman has shoes and go, oh, she has shoes. Why? That's dumb. That God wouldn't tell me to do that.
Yeah.
They don't look like her style.
Do we think that the enemy
Oh my gosh.
would ask you to give away something of yours to another woman?
Very unlikely.
Very
Possible,
unlikely,
but
not for that
unlikely.
reason. Right? What he would want you to be is selfish.
Yeah.
He'd want you to not be obedient.
Yeah.
Right? So, all right, so let me ratchet this up a little bit and give you same kind of idea, right?
Okay.
All right. So, Mel, you're in a hospital room with a dying parishioner.
Mm-hmm.
The family is all there, right? They've made the decision to pull the plug. This is a fate complete. This person is going to die in a few minutes, probably, right? Doctors have said that, right? We pull them off. They're going to die. All of that kind of stuff, right? So you're there with this family. Everybody's prepared for the passing, right? You've done all the prayers, all this stuff. You pull the plug, right? And you're waiting for a few minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Summer walks in the room and says, hey, God told me he's not going to die. So can I put my hands on and pray for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you do in that moment?
I think I would, definitely.
So you would take a family that's all prepped for him to die,
Yeah.
and you would say, hey, let's let her pray for him.
Yeah. Yep.
Pray.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And again, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
You're already prepped
Right.
for death.
Right.
Right? So she does it. All right. So you're at the funeral home, right? Gentleman's laying out in the coffin. Whole family's mourning. You're there. Summer walks up to you and says, Mel, the guy's not really dead.
He's just asleep.
God's gonna bring him back. So can you tell the family that I'd like to pray with them right now? Clear the room, pray with them, and pray over this gentleman because he's gonna get up and walk. Would you clear the room?
I got spare bumps.
Yeah, would you clear the room and would you tell the family what's going on here? Embalmed, dead for 3 days, 2 days, whatever it is. Would you clear the room and say, Summer's going to pray for him and he's coming back to life?
Wow. I'll tell you this. I would be more inclined to do that than I would the shoes.
To do the shoes.
Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, I don't. Isn't that the strangest thing?
That is definitely the strangest
That's
thing.
the strangest thing.
But me too. I mean, I would do it all, but I have no problem being like, no, it's okay if they're dead. They can come back. Let's do it.
So a line full of people, right? Line full of people giving their condolences, funeral director, casket, all the nine works. And Summer comes up to you and says, we need to clean the room. He's not dead, he's just sleeping. God's going to bring him back. And you wouldn't have any problem cleaning the room out and announcing that that's what we're doing. Not turning it over to Summer, right? But saying, hey, yeah, this guy's not really dead. We're going to bring him back.
Some kind of faith right there.
Huge. I mean,
Not
wow.
just in God, but that person's faith.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that's 2 layers of faith you gotta have. That person is right, and that God will do it. Right?
that the. I'm sorry.
The
what
person
what
who's gonna
person?
pray, like he's saying me, right? He said
Okay.
that I was gonna pray and
Yeah.
bring the guy back. So you're having faith that God's gonna do it, but you're also having faith that what I came in and told you, I actually heard from God.
Mm-hmm.
So start with part one, right? Part one is if Summer walked into a packed room
Mm-hmm.
of your parishioners, your people. She said, Mel, I drove all the way here, right? An hour plus here,
Mm-hmm.
because God told me to drive down here because Mr. Sam is not really dead. Even though he's been embalmed, he's not really dead. He's just sleeping. He's going to come back to life, right? I need you to tell the family, clear out the room,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to pray right now that this happens, right? Do you have faith enough in Summer, right? Would you have faith in anybody who did that? That they came up to you and said that you would say, let's clear the room.
In Summer's situation, yes. Now here comes the sticky part.
You better not steal from me.
Because I know Summer, and I know that she has this sincere heart, this devout heart, that she's really devoted to God.
Yep.
If it was a stranger off of the street that just came up to me and said that, I gotta admit, I would really have qualms.
Okay, so-
I would really have reservations. I would really have resistance.
Great. So now you kind of stole some of it, right? So here's the next question. Person off the street, you'd really have some qualms, right?
Yep.
What if it's a 9-year-old little girl that walks up to you?
I'd jump on that one
What?
first.
What?
That would be my...
Yeah, what if it was a 9-year-old girl? I'd be inclined to believe her than somebody who was 45.
It's true. It's just
I-
true. We respect your persons, no matter how you want to twist it. We are.
Yeah.
We just are.
If the 9-year-old walks up, grabs your hand and says, Pastor Mel, he's not really dead. Can I pray for him? You would say, you clear the whole room and say to the people, go up to the family and say, this 9-year-old girl says he's not really dead. And she wants to pray for him, and he's going to get up and he's going to walk. Because again, it's not just her belief, it's yours too. Like you're leading this whole thing. So would you believe like that's going to happen? I know lots of 9-year-olds who think that the person laying in the coffin's just sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
That's how lots of people present it.
That's how a lot of grown men think. They're just sleeping.
So you're going to clear the room and tell the family, hey, this 9-year-old just told me he's not really dead. So we're going to pray. And we're going to raise your loved one. Now, imagine, like, because the thoughts aren't just like, hey, he's dead, so if it doesn't work, he's dead. You're going to have to tell the family.
Messing
And
up a
they're
lot of
going to
people.
have a whole bunch of hope in that moment. You're going to tell a bunch of mourning people, hey, he's coming back to life. And then what are you going to do if it doesn't happen? Whoops. Sorry.
Just kidding.
Bring them all back in. Bring everybody in.
Then you got every teetering atheist in the room saying, your God's not big enough to do that?
I'm betting it makes the newspaper too.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor clears room with false hope.
Stop.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you know where all the enemies got a bazillion entry levels at this place, right? But a 9-year-old girl walks in, says, Pastor Mel, he's not sleeping.
Here's the problem, Mel.
What's the problem?
All your answers. Even though I love your answer about me. It's my favorite. But you're basing your whole decision on the person standing in front of you who's talking to you. So with me, real simple. You basically just said, Summer won't do anything wrong, so the enemy would target me to do something wrong because you're just going to trust whatever I say. The little girl, yeah, probably more likely to be hearing and saying from God, but we don't know. And you're going to look at a 45-year-old person who's a stranger and not know anything about them, so you don't know if you can trust them. But the whole thing, throughout the whole thing, I think what you have to do is, there should be something that goes on in your spirit when that happens, right? Like when that person walks up to you and says that, you better feel something on your own, right? That says God's got to confirm that to you and say yep or nope, send them away or clear the room, Mel.
And what is that confirmation, or what is that sense of up or down?
So it's funny because in the first part you said, Summer said, if I walk out the door and I trip over the shoes, if you never said anything, you'd be immediately thinking, oh, that was right. You should have.
Yeah.
Right? If she ends up in the hospital, you're going to have to go and say, Summer, God told me to tell you to give away those shoes. Right? We can add.
So someone else can trip.
And carry you to the car or whatever. Maybe he said give them away because he was just protecting her. Maybe the lady would never have wore them. But it was just about there's something wrong with the shoe.
And also an obedience lesson for you.
Right. So there's this whole thing. In this case, you don't have, there's no buffer, right?
No.
Literally, you could have heard the voice of God say, Summer, give away the shoe. And you could have been like, you know what, I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to carry Summer to her car. So you carried her car, put her in the car, and then nothing happens and you're safe, right? You're good. You don't have, if someone comes in, and again, I like what you said. What if it's a 45-year-old homeless person? And they walk in and they say, not dead. Clear the room. And 45-year-old homeless, that nobody knows.
Right, I know.
But you also have to know, I've heard people talk, right? Take what I even just said out of it, but when they speak the thing, I know it's not them, talking. I'm yeah, no, that's God talking to me right now. That is not that person. They're talking, but I can hear God. I hear that it's the Holy Spirit talking out of that person's mouth. So, I think, in a situation like that you need to be able to hear that. You need to be able to know what God's voice sounds like and what the Holy Spirit, how the Holy Spirit just talks to you and affirms those things. Because if you don't, there's big bad things that could happen or big things missed out on. If someone is supposed to come back from the dead, that would be huge to miss out on.
Yeah, and you do hear stories.
It happens, for sure.
It happens over in the Sudan,
Happens here too.
Dead. Yeah, right.
We just don't recognize it the same way.
Yeah.
We don't call it a miracle.
And we often...
We don't call it God.
Right, we make excuses and say, well, people can live 24 hours without, and
we just
come back.
say a bunch of stuff.
Right, so let me give you one more that's just practical. Those are extremes, right? Shoes are funny. Yeah, death one not funny, super extreme, right? But let's say that you invite a bunch of people over to your house for dinner, right? And you're sitting there for dinner, and people are getting ready to leave.
Why is he laughing?
Right? He's laughing because he's not going to do it. But they're sitting there, right? You've fed them, from whatever and they're getting ready to leave, and a voice in your head says, Mel, you need to tell this guy not to go because he's going to get in a car accident, right? You need to tell him to stay put for a little while, right? Would you do it? Would you look at him and say, I think you need to stay here for a little while longer?
Yeah. I think I'd be inclined to do that if an overwhelming impression I couldn't get away from it.
Okay, so now let me make it complicated. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I know your world. So let's say it's a woman and it's going to leave you alone with her.
And she's married?
Who cares the married thing? We don't even have to go there that far. Well,
Okay.
but let's just say it's a woman and it's going to leave you alone, right? There's 8 of you for dinner, but God says you need to tell her she needs to stay for a little while. Or she's going to be in an accident. Would you tell her that?
Would I tell her
Would you
why?
tell her? Would you say, I don't know why, but God just told me to tell you need to stay here a while. Now, you know what that looks like,
I'd
right?
be like, okay.
You know what? Now, see, that would be easier to do than to tell Summer, that woman over there needs your shoes.
So with all the pastoral parameters,
Really?
all the things you have, you think that telling a woman, well, there's other people who are going to leave, right? And they're going to leave you alone with her. That would be easier to say, like, hey.
I'm saying, yeah, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. My first impression. Yeah.
Okay. So again, Summer, you and I are sitting in a restaurant. God says, Mel, you need to go tell that person across the aisle, right? Who's just taking a big, humongous bite of their juicy hamburger. God just said, you need to get to the hospital right now. You're going to have a heart attack. Would you walk across the aisle and tell that person, God told you, they need to get to the hospital right away?
I would like to interject here for a moment and just say that I am offended on behalf of the burger. That you associated the burger with a heart attack. You should change that to a big
Pepsi.
giant piece of cake.
Okay. So Mel, the person across from you is just about ready to take a humongous sip of their Pepsi.
Yeah.
And God says, you need to go tell Andy that if he takes that sip of Pepsi, he's going to have a heart attack right now.
Oh, man.
Would you
I'd do that to
be
people anyway.
proactive that way? You're not asking for anybody to give something away, but they paid for their meal, like they've ordered it. All that stuff's right there. Would you tell somebody if God said, Mel, you're gonna have a heart attack if you don't get to the hospital right now?
Oh, would I do it? In that case, you know what? I'm just looking at my own heart, my own patterns that I've already established.
Sure.
I'd say, no, I don't think I would do it. Just
So-
to being honest.
No. So again, part of the deal is, right? The affirmation of that is you hear God say that, you watch them take a sip, and you watch them keel over. Right? Like that's the only way to affirm that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? In that moment, for you to visually see that. You could know that person, read that they have a heart attack later, that kind of thing, sure. Right? So again, we run into those kind of things all the time. When it comes to Christianity, if God said to you, Mel, you need to go tell that person that tonight's the last opportunity that they're going to have to accept Jesus, to have a relationship with Jesus, to secure their eternal destiny, would you do it? If God said in your head, if you said, you need to go walk over to that guy and say, tonight's it. Not tell them they're going to have a heart attack, not tell them they're going to get run over by a train, not tell them anything. But would you look at them and say, tonight's it. Like, you need to get right with Jesus tonight. Would you do it?
I'm gonna say I probably would not. I'm just being honest.
No?
I just have to look at my own heart and just say, okay, what am I like in situations like that? And I don't want to, I would much rather say this is what I'd like you to do than to have bravado and not do that. I just feel like these sticky, difficult situations, I feel like I've had similar times before and have not followed through on them. It's very, I'd say it's rather convicting at times.
So, this isn't just for you, Mel, question. This is for you and Summer question. How do we get there? Right? How do we get, because I love what Summer said, how do we get to a point where who's telling us doesn't matter?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That we know, right? Whether it's an 8-year-old or a 45-year-old homeless, or God sends us across the aisle, or God tells us to tell somebody they need to get rid of something, right? Again, we don't know what God's doing behind the scenes. But how do we get to a place where we're not Mel in the middle, that we're listening and that we're doing something about this voice that we hear, or that we're reacting to what God tells us?
Mm-hmm.
If you're smart, you look at Summer right now and say, help.
I mean, you want my answer?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm too scared not to.
Mm.
Like, I am way too scared not to. I have seen and heard and felt and had way too much, that my goal is to know God's voice well enough that I'm not going to be in that, like, I don't know, should I, is it really God, is he really saying this, like, so, because I don't want to mess up. I don't want to do the wrong thing at all. So I'm just too scared not to. Like, I don't care how stupid it is. I don't care how crazy it looks. Because if God is telling me to do it, crazy or not, like, it's gonna work out. Like, if you tell somebody something, or like you tell me to give the lady my shoes, I mean, there's gonna be immediate affirmation in that. Like, they're gonna know, right? Like, they're gonna know. If you clear out the room and I pray and the guy comes back to life, then they know, right? So, like, I don't think God's gonna have you do something like that and then leave you hanging.
Mm-hmm.
But even if somehow it looked like he did, it's still better than what would happen if I didn't do it and the guy killed over the heart attack and died. And then how do I even that up with God and say, well, maybe me telling him that would have given him another week to get saved, and now he didn't get saved, and now he's in hell, and I just knew, and yeah, how do I settle that? Now, obviously, I just ask for forgiveness, and God says okay, but that's not going to be good enough for me for a long time in my head, because I'm going to know what I did, right? So I'm just too scared not to.
Wow.
That's the answer for me.
That's good.
So fear of what if I don't
Fear of the Father
trumps fear of what if I do.
I see that. Yeah. I think, wow, that's a fantastic perspective.
Beginning of wisdom is the fear of God.
Yeah. Yes.
So is it possible that the enemy has duped us into thinking so much about the fear of what we do, what if we do this, that we're not looking at the fear
What if
of
we don't?
what? So again, was Adam and Eve's whole thing, was Eve focused on what if I do this, or was her focus on what if I don't do this? You know what I mean? Like, so I think sometimes we're so focused on, okay, what if I do this and it's goofed up, right? Or what if I do this and it's
stupid,
okay?
Or I hurt someone's feelings.
Rather than the fear of, God told me not to do this, right? Or God told me to do this. What if I don't do what God has told me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're more afraid of, what if I tell somebody what God just told me and they react poorly? Rather than, what if I don't do what God has asked me and he reacts poorly?
Mm-hmm.
And listen, there's learning in that, because I'm pretty sure I could say that we have all thought we heard from God and told somebody something or did something and it wasn't right. It wasn't from God and we thought it was. And do people get hurt sometimes, or things get a little messed up? Yeah, but I think God still doesn't leave you hanging in those cases, because if you're doing that because you truly love people and you love God and you're trying to figure it out, and he knows that you think it's him for real and that you're really trying to do the right thing, I don't think he's just going to be like, oh, well, like, yeah, some things might get a little jacked up. but again, it's about your heart, and he knows what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and you'll learn from that lesson, and then he'll tweak you, but and then you'll know exactly what his voice doesn't sound like, which is something you got to learn too, because if you never tested either way, then you don't know if it's ever him.
Well, and sometimes we add to it, right? So if God says, Mel, tell Summer to give shoes to that lady. But if we add...
We try to rationalize
If we add to that, hey, Summer, go give that lady your shoes. She needs them.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what God told you. That's not at all what he
Add,
said.
don't subtract.
So if Summer goes, listen, I think you need my shoes. The lady could look at it and go, I don't need your shoes. Look at my shoes. I have shoes. I don't need them. Yeah. Not putting the fact that she's been praying for shoes for her daughter, her granddaughter, or women at church, or maybe she takes the shoes and later on some lady goes up and says, I need a pair of shoes. And she's like, well, you're never going to guess. Well, I was just given a pair of shoes.
That happens.
But we predetermine what God's going to do.
Right.
And then we add to that, right? So we add to the message.
Kind of like Eve's and saying, God told us not to touch the apple.
That's right.
Yep. Wow.
We add. Yeah, see, Mel, we really are thinking on the same page today.
Yeah.
We add to it rather than just, God said this. So, like, again, I ran into yesterday. God said, don't go somewhere. Then God said, okay, you can go somewhere, right? I went somewhere, and then I got there, and a little while later, God's like, all right, go home. And I'm like, there's not any part of this. So then I thought I was going home because I have an uncle that was sick and, and isn't doing well. So I thought, all right, God's got me home because something's going to happen there and I need to. And then it turns out my uncle's doing well. So then I'm left going, why did I do all of that? How come I went? And God never asked me to put it all together. He just simply said, go here, then go here, then go here. And would God do that? And would he do it just out of obedience?
And just to protect you.
Again, I think sometimes God knows that we can be sitting ducks for the enemy. So he does move us around, right? To me, a 45-year-old homeless guy walking into a funeral home with people he does not know or she does not know, and walking up and saying, excuse me, are you Pastor Mel? Listen, this guy's not dead, would be mind-blowingly crazy. The 9-year-old would be way more understandable if they're there, right? Yeah. Somebody in the family, Summer, all that would even be more. I know Summer believes like that's possible. But for some person to walk in out of the blue and say, awesome. Hey, just want you to know, that's totally, that is a totally mind-blowing
And just so you know, God's going to pick the person you would least likely believe to do it.
Because it'll be part of the story.
It'll be part of your lesson.
I mean, think about it. He also used a donkey. So talk about least likely.
Naughty prophet wasn't listening.
Yeah. Oh, lots to think about.
There you go, Mel.
Oh, it's good to get this rigorous workout of the mind and the spirit. Glad you joined us today.
No shot.
See you next time on Mel in the Middle, and I can guarantee you, Summer will be in a different set of shoes.
Yes, I will.